Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica.
So today's video is all about romantic suspense. But, yay, before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We are still doing our Road to 1K giveaway. Our next level is 750. And so when we reach that many subscribers, Mandy, what are we doing?
Well, speaking of romantic suspense,
No.
9 Minutes by Beth Flynn fits that bill.
It does. It really does.
So this is our giveaway book, and it is signed by the author, Beth Flynn, and she sent us this book. So thank you so much, Beth, for our next giveaway. And we also have some fun bookish swag that we'll be adding with this. But definitely check this book out if you haven't yet.
Yeah. Okay, so romantic suspense is something that I think you and I both really like this when we can find a good one, because it keeps you on the edge of your seat. Typically the hero and heroine, there's somebody murdering somebody, or they're trying to run away together, or like there's some kind of suspenseful action that's happening throughout the book.
Yes.
So it always has me on the edge of my seat, and I really like it. So yeah. So I chose 5 that there's one that's fairly popular and the rest are not. What about you?
I just picked 5 really good romantic suspense books.
Okay. I know. Well, because I was debating between 2 and they were both fairly popular. And I'm like, I'm not going to do both popular because that's part of our thing, right? We want to give you guys options, like books that are not as well known. Even though some might be, but still, I was looking at the 2 and I was like, okay, how do I choose between these 2? And I was like, okay, well, I'll just go by how many reviews it has on Goodreads, and the one for less is the one we'll talk about. So that's what I did. So, okay. So the first book that I'm going to show you guys is the one that is the most popular. But when I think romantic suspense, this is the book I think of, which is Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. You have Garnet Flats, don't you, Mandy?
I do. And Juniper Hill.
And Juniper Hill. So Juniper Hill, I love Juniper Hill. It's the second one. This is the first in that series. Garnet Flats, I think, is the third in that series, and I haven't read that one yet. But when I think of romantic suspense, I think of this series by Devney Perry. So this one is the Bell book box cover, but this is about Winslow. So Winslow's grandpa is the mayor in this little town in Montana. I think all of Devney Perry's books take place in Montana. But anyhow, her grandpa is the mayor. And so she ends up getting a job as the chief of police in this little town. And she's got to prove herself. Not only is she being brought in as an outside person to this town, she's being brought in as a woman as the chief of police. And so she's kind of coming up against all of those stereotypes and those things that, you know, when you're a woman doing a job that's considered a man's job, like she's coming up against all that stuff. So she has that when she gets there. On the first night when she gets there, she meets a guy at a bar and they end up having a one-night stand. Come to find out, like the next day, that is Griffin. And Griffin's family owns everything. Like they're the founding family in this town. And on Griffin's ranch, there has been a murder. And so this is this story. Like there, you've got this love story of these two, but you've also got the murder, and it's a serial killer. Like there's more girls. Like there's a past murder from a few years ago, which was his girlfriend or fiance, I can't remember, who was also found dead. Like they thought that they had jumped off this cliff, and that's not necessarily what's happening. And there's more than one. So there is a serial killer on the loose, and there's a love story in a small town. It's great. So I really like this one. I like this. Again, not a town I'd want to live in, though.
Speaking of towns you wouldn't want to live in, Jessica, what is romance without a stalker or a serial killer?
Oh my gosh, that's a Catherine Cowles book. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't think you can have a romantic suspense
without Catherine Cowles.
Without Catherine Cowles. And again, don't want to live in her towns.
No, nope. So is that what you got?
That is what I have. Okay. So I have Fractured Sky by Catherine Cowles. And this is the 5th and final book in the Tattered and Torn series, but it was my favorite, so that's why I picked this one. If you read the series in order, you definitely get more of the history of the characters and it flows, but they can also be read alone as well. So this is about Shiloh and Ramsey. Shiloh was kidnapped as a kid, and it's really impacted her family greatly, and how they treat her, and how the mom really treated her siblings as well. And Shiloh just really wants to live her life, but kind of be left alone. So she just kind of does her own thing, really avoids people and that sort of thing. And she has a love for horses. And she meets Ramsey, who is kind of like a hermit who lives up in the mountains on this ranch. And he doesn't really socialize a lot with people because of some things that have happened to him. So this is really the story of two very damaged people who end up doing a lot of good with helping horses, and a couple of adorable little boys. Well, maybe not so little because one's driving, but still. And also there is something going on. Somebody is not happy about Shiloh and Ramsey being together. Dun, dun, dun.
I think all these books have that dun 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 at the end of them. There's always something there because it's the suspense part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So for my next book, I chose my top read from January. So that is Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. I like this one a lot. I know that it's not for everybody. I've seen some reviews where it didn't work for everybody, but I personally love it. And I think part of the reason why I personally love it is because of the Irish folklore in it and my Irish heritage. Like that I love it. Plus the audio for this, I can't remember who does it, but he does an awesome Irish accent. Just saying. I could just listen to him talk all day. Anyhow, so this is about Darby and Kellen. When Darby is a little girl, her parents have split up, and her mom takes her to Ireland to see her grandpa. He lives there. And so when she's there, she's playing in the woods behind Grandpa's house one day, and she runs into this little boy who's Kellen. And he is dirty, and he's hungry, and he's rabid, and he's wild, and he does not talk. He is selectively mute at that point. And he lives with a priest in town, and his mom basically kind of dropped him off there. So he is considered the son of the devil because of the way he behaves and things. Like, he just has a really horrible home life. And even though he lives with the priest, he has a bad home life. But every year, like they meet that year, and they're playing, and she says he has like a cut on his lip. And so they're playing Harry Potter. And so she takes her little wand and she tries to heal his lip, and, she taps it. There's just these little moments of just like, oh my gosh, that poor child, it just breaks her heart. And then we see them every year. She promises to come back every year. And so for a handful of years, that does happen. And she'll meet him out in the woods where they have this little rundown cabin. And he starts to fix it up for her. So every year when she goes back, that's where she finds him, and they spend a week together every summer. But then something happens that keeps them apart, and it keeps her from coming back. And Kellen is not happy about that. He ends up, there's things that happen in his life where he starts to turn away, and starts to get into some things that he probably shouldn't. And when Darby finally returns, she's in her early 20s. She's engaged to another man, and she and him are there together. But that situation is not all that great. And she thinks that Kellen is dead because of some events that had happened. And so this is their story. He's in the mafia at this point in time. But when he gets back with her, he tries to get out. People are not happy when you try to leave the mob. Just do that. They're not happy. So this is their story of how that works. Mm-hmm. I love the Irish folklore in this, though, so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked for me. So, okay.
My next book is Unravel by Calla Reed. This is part of her Fairfax series. So you could.
I knew you were going to do it. Otherwise, I would have done it.
And then also Unhinged definitely falls in the category of romantic suspense as well. But I wanted to start with the first book. So this is about Naomi. She is in a psych ward, and she's been there for about a month. And she's telling us that she's not crazy, but she's starting to like kind of question her sanity. So we know right away, like, like she's in a psych ward. She's telling us she's not crazy, but there's some reason she's in the psych ward. And so as the reader, you don't know what you can believe and what you can't believe that she's telling you because she's in a psych ward. And she admits that she's starting to question her own sanity at times. And so Lachlan comes to visit her. Max comes to visit her, and she has flashbacks of her really good friend, Lana, or Lana, however you want to say that. But we don't really know how any of these people fit into her life. This book is amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was a tearjerker. I felt all the angst, all the feelings, and I was kind of on the edge of my seat about like, who are these people? What is happening? And if you read Unravel and you're like, ooh, that was really good, go read Unhinged because that is going to give you even more romantic suspense and thriller vibes.
You know, I have the book right here.
Ooh.
And I was looking at the front of it here, and what I'm really surprised by is there's a quote on the front, and it's by Claire Contreras.
Oh, really?
Now, like a bigger author right now. Like she's making a name for herself. Yeah, it says a sexy, mysterious, and enthralling story. Calla reads, words are so captivating they'll hold you hostage and throw you into loops you'll never see coming. And so Claire Contreras. That's very interesting. I just saw that one. Whoa, wait, that's a quote from Claire Contreras. So that's pretty awesome. But
that is.
Yeah. Okay. So the next book that I have is by Mia Sheridan. Now, we all know Mia Sheridan because she wrote
Archer's Voice.
Thank you. Guys, I have a cold. Okay, my brain's not functioning properly today. She wrote Archer's Voice, but this book is this next one is awesome. So this is called Savaged by Mia Sheridan. So this is about Harper. And Harper has been called to this little town in Montana. Harper is a wilderness guide, and she's being called by the sheriff's department, I believe it was, to come and help with a person that they found in the wilderness who is suspected of a double homicide. And this man, they're referring to him as a savage. He is wild. He is he's wearing animal skins, and he doesn't talk very much, and he's dirty, and he's lived alone in a cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and nobody knows who he is or where he's from. He's like been raised by wolves. At first, I think that's what he actually told them. I can't remember 100%. It's been a little while since I read it, but she gets there and she meets him, and his name is Lucas. That's what they're calling him. And there is just something about him. So yes, he is savage, and there is these crazy things about him, but when she looks into his eyes, she can see this intelligence, and she can see these other things of this caring soul. And so she's like, did he really kill two people? You have the mystery of what's happening, because there's other things happening as well, and her life is put on the line. And you have the mystery of, who is he? He says he's lived in the wilderness since he was very small, and he doesn't remember anything else. And so, like, where did he come from? Did he do the murder? What's happening here? So this was a really, really good story. I read it a couple of years ago, and there is a lot of this story that I can still pick out without having to go back and read to see what it was about, like read a synopsis. Like it stands out. Like lots of, I think like images in my head from the story still stand out. And I read it about 3 years ago. So this one, I totally recommend. It was very good.
I thought you were going to keep going.
No, I don't, if I go anymore, it'll give things away, because there's so much to this book. But
yes. Romantic suspense is kind of tricky because sometimes things happen at the very beginning that you don't want to know when you start reading the book.
Yes.
So then if we give much away, then it can kind of romantic suspense sometimes is better going in blind, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Okay. My next book is called Luca by Nisa Catherine. I hope I said that name right. You can look up there and be like, no, you butchered it, or yes, you got it. Anyway, this is book number 1 in Project Arma. And this is about Evie. Evie is on the run from a very abusive ex who suddenly turned abusive. And so she has this whole plan where she only stays for a few months and she moves on because she's terrified of him finding her. And she moves in next door to Luca into like this kind of crappy little house that he's even surprised somebody would even live there. And Luca is a former Navy SEAL who was in a special program that basically turned him into a human weapon. And him and a few of the other guys that were in this program have gotten out, and they are working to kind of take that program down, that government entity, I guess. And they also all work together in a security detail firm, I guess, that they've started. So Evie is very, very she's not going to be a super strong heroine in the fact that she has just kind of accepted that she has to move on. This is what she has to do to survive. So in a way, she's a very strong heroine because she's gotten herself out of a very abusive situation and she has a plan and she's sticking to it. But if we look at like her like fighting back, she's kind of just resolved to this is how her life is. And so she does not really want to get close to Luca, but Luca is really like intrigued, kind of drawn to her. And so she reluctantly agrees to kind of start seeing him, and he's trying to help her, but she's still terrified of this ex and is keeping those walls up. So this is their story. That's about as much as I can give you, but you can understand there's probably a lot going on with this government thing, and that ex is probably gonna not just let things go quietly. So lots of suspense going on in this book. Also, this was in third person, and normally I hate third person, but I actually really enjoyed this book. And I read a couple more in the series too.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned Claire Contreras a minute ago. That's whose book I have next. So Mandy, you and I have both read this one because you read it first.
I did, and I told you, ooh, this is really good.
You did. So this is Until I Get You, again, by Claire Contreras. And so this is about Lila and Lachlan. So Lachlan is a hockey star. Don't get excited. We don't see any hockey in this book. I mean, we see barely any hockey in this book. But him and Lila Lila at a party, and he is in college, and he is like the big hockey star, and she is frumpy, and she wears a bunch of clothes like layered, and she wears big oversized clothes for some reason, and she is very standoffish and wants nothing to do with the hockey star, which attracts the hockey star because why wouldn't it? But there's a reason why she's dressing like that. There's a reason why she's as standoffish as she is. But they start a relationship. And then all of a sudden one day, if I remember correctly, she just ups and leaves. And she's gone. And he's devastated. And he looks for her for 3 years until he finds her. And when he finds her, whatever caused her to leave still hasn't been resolved and is still a bit of an unknown, and he's not very nice to her when he finds her either. Like he's pissed she left, and he kind of takes it out on her. But there's that background of like what's going on, what really happened to make her leave, what's going on there. So this is another good one. And again, can't really say much. I mean, he's possessive and over the top, and it is a second chance romance, but you also have the other crazy elements behind it too.
Okay, so my next book is called Unloved by Katie Regenery. And this, you're looking at me funny. Did I butcher it?
No.
Oh.
Okay. I'm thinking as we're talking. No.
Okay.
No.
So this book, Jessica, I know you've read it. It's a little bit different than your typical romantic suspense, but it definitely has serious romantic suspense going on in it. So let me tell you about it. So this is about Cassidy. And when he was 8 years old, his dad was executed for killing like a dozen women. And so he has grown up with a mom and a grandpa who are very like overprotective of him, thinking that he might have some of this darkness in him. So they have lived this very sheltered life up in the mountains, and both his mom and grandpa have passed away, so it's just him, and he has promised them that he would stay away from society, basically, so that this evil that could possibly be lurking in him doesn't come out, because they loved him and just didn't want to see him go down that sort of path. So he lives way out in the wilderness, all alone, very self-sufficient man. And then we have Bryn, whose fiance died about 2 years ago. You are definitely going to want to check triggers on this, because there's a lot of things that could be very triggering for people that this book deals with. So she decides, she's struggled to move on with her life, and she decides the perfect way to do this, it's been about 2 years, that she is going to go hike this mountain back where he used to live. And he always wanted her to go hiking with him to this summit. And it's like quite the trek, but she decides she's going to do it. So while she's doing this, a bunch of the people that she kind of meets up with decide to turn around, and she's determined to keep going, even though she really probably shouldn't have. And she gets attacked. And Cassidy actually saves her and takes her back to his place and kind of nurses her back to health. And they really form this strong bond. But Cassidy is still dealing with all of these feelings and all of this stuff that he has literally been told his entire life, that he has this darkness. So he's very scared to get close to Bryn at all. And then there's still the matter of somebody attacked her and left her for dead. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I really enjoyed this book a lot.
I did too. Yeah, I like that one. And there's audio for that one. I remember that much.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay. So then my last book, it has a little damage to it. How did that happen? Oh, I don't know that I can handle this. It's got a bump in the back. It didn't a few weeks ago. Anyhow, this is Love in the Wild by Emma Castle. So this is actually a Tarzan retelling, but it is a modern day Tarzan retelling. And there is that suspenseful element to it. And I do love the story behind, as you're trying to find out what happened to him and all that good stuff. But this is about Eden and Thorn. So when Thorn was a little boy, his airplane crashed with his parents in the jungle, and he's lived in the jungle his whole life. And then you have Eden, who has, she is a photographer, and she is going on this expedition to photograph the gorillas. And when she gets out into that area, when they find the gorillas, she's with this group of people, a bunch of tourists, and they are attacked by mercenaries. And she is the only survivor, which definitely check triggers. That first scene when that happens is horrible, but they're all executed except for her. And the reason why they're not is because Thorn comes to her rescue. And so this is their story. So they have they spend some time together, in the jungle. But once she realizes that, he takes her to see the plane, and there's these jewels, and there's all these things. There's these things that are there, you have to, who killed his parents, why, because his parents survived the plane crash. Who is he, what is his past, why is he still being hunted in the jungle? There's all these things. So it's not just a Tarzan retelling, you have that suspenseful element as well. And I do love the time when they're just living in the jungle together. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. And virgin hero, obviously. So So that was my last one. What about you? What do you got for your last one?
Okay, my last one is Ruthless Creatures by J.T. Geisinger. Mm-hmm. This book instantly drew me in because Nat is supposed to get married, and her fiance just disappeared right before they were supposed to get married. So she has the wedding dress and everything. So we fast forward 5 years ago. She's still kind of dealing with this because he's just gone. She doesn't know what happened to him. She doesn't know if he got killed, if he got hurt, nothing. He's just gone, not a trace. And then this really hot looking guy named Cage ends up moving in next door. And she's very intrigued by him. And he seems to be very intrigued by her. And guess what, Jessica?
What?
Did you read this?
Yes.
Oh, you've read this. Okay, so never
Yeah.
mind. So I'm just going to read right from the back because I don't want anybody to feel like I gave anything away in this book. This comes straight from the back. So Nat says, but then I discover he's been sent to collect on an unpaid debt from my missing fiance. And that debt is me.
Yep.
So I love this because you have the mystery of like, where did this fiance go? Who exactly is Cage? But yet you kind of are getting some insta-love vibes with Cage and Nat as the story goes on. It was really good.
Have you continued on with this series?
I haven't. It's actually on my list of series that is like, why did I not keep reading this? So I actually ordered the second book in this series. So when we go to Love in Vegas, I can get it from her signed.
Yeah, I read the second, but I haven't continued on. I really want to. Like, it's on my list of things that I want to read maybe this month, maybe next. But I ordered the last book in the series because I like the cover for when we go down there. But I do want to continue on with it.
I found this book at Goodwill for $1.99. I was so excited.
Yes.
I'm like, how? Why would this book end up at Goodwill? I was very perplexed.
Maybe somebody didn't know what they had.
And then I spent like a very long time going through every shelf to see if there were I like got dropped off with this book. That was the only one I found that I wanted.
Yeah. So that is all of the romantic suspense that we have for you guys today.
Make sure to comment below on what some of your favorite romantic suspenses are. Have you read any of the ones that we talked about? Do any of them stand out that you're adding onto the ever-growing TBR? And then make sure to check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us.
Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.